I don't know. Let's just go live, he says as he clicks the go live button. Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy Adam's birthday. Today I am the ripe age of 47 years old, if you can even believe it, because I sure as heck can't. I got a bunch of awesome stuff scheduled for today. I started the day with the gym. My wife gave me a lovely present. Um, And then I've got a haircut scheduled, which is why my hair, if you're on the only audio version of this, then that's too bad for you because you're missing my James Altucher like hair. It's like a little wild. So got a haircut scheduled, and then I've got pickleball scheduled, and then I've got Magic the Gathering scheduled. Oh, what a day. I hope that all of you on your birthday get to have days as awesome as this one, as well as days that aren't your birthday. So today we have a very special, very sexy live show for you. Disclaimer, this show will be neither sexy nor special, but it will be a live show. And I'm going to talk about stuff. I'm going to riff on a bunch of topics. I'm going to drink some hot brown with you here simultaneously out of this. What is this cup? This is a Snow White mug. We've got Snow White on the one side, and on the other side, we've got the evil princess or queen or whatever who feeds Snow White a poisoned apple. Talk about needing a little acknowledgement. You just need a little acknowledgement, lady. You don't have to feed her a poison apple. There's a bunch of stuff I'm going to riff on today, depending. So we'll see how much I feel like doing this. I may reach the point partway through the episode where I feel as though I've riffed sufficiently, and then I'm going to just go down by the ocean and sit by the sea because I like to do that. And we're in this portion of the year in Victoria where it's just the most gorgeous place in the world. So I tend to find, especially on the heels of the breakthrough I created most recently, which I just realized that should be something I talk about today. Perhaps I have lied about the description for this episode, but whatever. On the heels of that breakthrough, um, I'm finding a real call to stillness and just sitting by nature. So it's cool. It's opened up. So let me dive into that first. My good friend Seth asked, he said, I'd be really interested to hear about your breakthrough. Have you talked about it on your podcast? I have not. It's been a really big breakthrough for me. So I will share about that process. I will aim to do it succinctly. And then we're going to shift from there into this idea of leaders who are good at everything, stuck anyway. So we'll talk about kind of like two key components to that. And then time and inspiration allowing, I will also riff on some of these other topics. Some of these other topics being AI making the wrong things easier, everyone building a feedback culture, and no one having a real conversation. Have you seen this? Have you heard this? Have you noticed this? Vulnerability as a leadership brand. Brene Brown, you haven't done something wrong, but everyone's performance-ized it. We'll talk about how the most self-aware people are often the most stuck. What? But I'm super self-aware. How could I be stuck? I'm aware of where I'm stuck. Wrong. We're going to crush that. And then I'll talk about this idea of like, quote unquote, I just need better work-life balance. I would also love for anyone writing into the show, or if you're calling in, or if you're doing comments, I would like to know, how do you like to do air quotes? I am quite partial to the way they did quotes in an old British show, probably the earliest TV appearance of Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, called A Bit of Fry and Laurie. They would do a single finger, just gently dabbing in the air quotes. So I'd be interested to hear how you, dear listener, do your air quotes. Okay, so let's talk about my breakthrough first. This is really a breakthrough in purpose, but I had no idea that's what it was. And the experience about, Bay's mom passed away just about 2 years ago now. And after about a year, her grief, the heaviness of her grief had kind of like cleared a little bit. And I think, if I look at it through the spiritual lens, which is always, you can hold that however you want, but like, I would say there was this point where like I didn't have to, in the midst of the height of her grief, I felt very much like I'm the one holding, I'm the one holding the ground for us. After that year had passed, my hunch, my sense, my intuition is that I could actually release some of that. I could actually be in a place where I could have a little more of my own process instead of holding the space for my partner's process. Um, Also, I'm not saying that that's necessarily what her experience was, but that's kind of how it occurred through my lens. And what started to happen about a year ago was a couple things. First of all, as I'm sure all of you have noticed, and the fact that we have just one, thank you so much, dear one viewer, but just one viewer here, whereas historically we used to have about 20 viewers at a time live. A bunch of stuff has happened, like social media has become even more shitty than it once was. So there's less people on it. There's less opportunity for people to discover content like this. There's not much discoverability. It's fully algorithmicized, meaning I don't get to see what my friends are posting. I see what's hot. I see what's going to go viral. I see what's going to encourage me to stay on the platform for longer. And you could make the argument, well, but seeing my friend's stuff has me be on the platform. That's what you think intellectually. That's what like that conscious part of our brain thinks. But the unconscious part of our brain is like, if someone says something that I disagree with that is offensive, I'm going to argue with them. And that's what's going to keep you on the platform. So that's what gets circulated more. So all of that happened. What that did, well, there's one more thing that happened, which is AI has slowly risen, as I'm sure you've noticed. And that's, as I've talked about before, it's flattened the signal to noise gap. What I mean by that is there is still a gap between the noise, which we call now AI slop, and the actual signal. People putting something genuine, heartfelt, something they've poured their soul into in writing, in art, in whatever. People are still publishing that stuff, but the gap between those two things is not as it's not as wide. It requires more discerning to determine, is there a spirit behind this? Like, is there a human soul behind this? Or is this just junk created by a machine? And when that gap gets flattened, what happens is a lot of us feel kind of like overwhelmed or just tired or like, I can't even, maybe you've had this experience. You're like, I can't even be bothered. I'm just going to stop trying to, because I don't want to devote the cycles to figuring out what's real and what isn't. And because there's so much stuff now, I'm just going to stop trying. So what that did was it made social media even more kind of like a failed mall. You know that experience when you go in a mall and you're like, wow, this dead mall. There's stores, there's like a few people wandering through it, but it doesn't have the vibrancy that I remember malls used to do when I was a kid. So that's all happened. And what that created for me was this deep experience of like kind of listlessness. I found it very hard to find any kind of inspiration for myself. I should actually, what if I set up a banner while I'm talking about this? We'll just edit that and we'll say Adam's recent, and I'm going to type loudly in your ear, but don't worry, show. There you go. Adam's recent breakthrough. So I started to feel about a year ago a deep sense of like kind of boredom, kind of a lack of inspiration, simultaneous to this showing up in terms of like my writing and other things I was up to. This also showed up in the program that I've been leading for the last 10 years, The Forge, which Bay and I co-lead. It's not that I was dialing it in, like I was showing up on the calls and blah, 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 but like qualitatively, there is something that just wasn't as alive in me as had been historically. And so all of this was pretty problematic because one of the things I'm a real stand for is that we as humans get to live a life that is inspired. Not like, wow, I'm inspired by how cool Tenzing Norgay is climbing Mount Everest. More like I'm inspired by like my possibility and who I be and what I create and what's possible, all of that stuff, inspiration from within. And I was not experiencing that. And so it was really challenging because I would bring this to my coach, I would share this, and what I was trying to do is like, what is the thing missing? Like, what do I need to get? What do I need to understand or learn? What's the insight I haven't had? What's maybe the like purpose for me that is loud enough to like pull me out of this muck that I seem to be in? And I was, my coach would do a great job and point to all the right things and I would then take those and practice with them, but it just didn't really land. Nothing really happened. And I felt a lot like, for those that are around my age and have seen the movie, the original Karate Kid, I felt like Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid, the titular Karate Kid, painting the friggin' fence. And I was like, where the frig is the friggin' karate? Frig. I was just doing the mundane chore of painting the fence, but there was no magic. Another way I've heard this described is my friend Toku, who lived in a monastery, a Zen monastery for 2-3 years. He talked about this concept that they call a meditation desert. And that concept is where you're getting up every day and you're meditating, but it's just rote meditation. You're just staring at the wall, meditating. And there's no enlightenment, there's no Satori moment, there's no sort of like Buddha opening up or awakening within you. None of that. You're just sitting looking at a wall for 6 hours. That's how it felt. And so this was pretty grueling, honestly. You know, as a man whose purpose is inspiration, who's committed to that, as a man who's really committed to like moving things forward, it felt very grindy. And I should add, one of the things I'm really reliable for is to do the hard work when, like, even when I don't want to. Because one of the things one of the stories I created about myself growing up, like the things I sort of learned about myself is that I'm not reliable. I can't trust myself in terms of like what I want to do is just sit on the couch and drink a 40 and hang out. I can't trust that part of myself. And to compensate thus, I created this really reliable part of myself to like force myself to do stuff even if I don't want to. So that guy was alive during this period. Like, all right, we're going to do this. I'm going to paint the fence. I don't want to. I'm having a hard time trusting it, but I'm going to paint the stupid friggin' fence because that seems to be all there is to do. So this happened over a period of like maybe 9 months. And um, I was really kind of like, I was sort of in this place where I was like, geez, what am I going to do next? Like, is it even going to be coaching? Because I'm having a hard time finding myself in this. I'm having a hard time finding possibility, having a hard time believing in it. I'm having, you know, all of these questions. I'm not feeling that inspired. I'm completely unemployable at this point. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 15 years, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I have a tattoo on my left hand. So really a challenging place to be. And um, in the midst of all that, the one thing that remained the same was like absolutely committed to working with my coach, to working with teachers, you know, to being in the work, not disengaging completely. It just, the fact was it sucked. Being in the work sucked. So let's have a sip, a little sipperoo. What what this period happened over the course of like 9 months, kind of like a bell curve maybe, or kind of more like climbing up a cliff and then sort of leveling off. Um, and in transformational work, there is a unavoidable, undeniable truth that a lot of people will try to avoid and a lot of people will try to deny. That's fine, but it's still unavoidable and undeniable. And that truth is, if you want to break through, there must be a breakdown before it. There is no way to avoid this. Another way to think about this is if you want to create a result that is not currently predictable for your existing way of showing up in life, that will require disruption. And disruption will be uncomfortable and it will leave you in a space of feeling like you don't understand and it will trigger all of your fears. So if you are someone who learned to prepare for life and if like prepare and be ready before you take the leap, if you want something that is only available on the other side of taking a leap in life and becoming someone who leaps in life, that's going to require a breakdown or disruption. And the disruption will be what happens when you take the leap before you feel ready. And you're like, frig, life has arranged itself in all of the ways that I historically have prepared for to protect myself from. We basically jump into the deep end and then learn how to swim. And we try to avoid that. So this was the breakdown in hindsight. And the way it unfolded for me was that I got to this point of just surrender. And that always sounds kind of cool. Oh, hello, Balori. So, F everything and just dropped. Yeah, nice. Surrender always sounds really good when we talk about it intellectually, because it's just like, oh yeah, you just surrender, dude. Just surrender, whatever. And there's like a version of surrender that we can enact or that we can do, which is really just, I would call it like kind of giving up. It's like if you're trying to create a result that hasn't worked and that's outside of what you already know how to create, reaching a point and being like, screw it, I'm going to stop. So it's sort of like surrender from resignation or defeat. as opposed to surrender from commitment. And surrender from commitment is like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Ah, crap. It's not working. Fuck it. And then continuing to take those steps, even though we're in that space. So that was that second kind of, the first kind of surrender, it doesn't ask a lot of us. The second kind of surrender cannot be reached intellectually. It can only be reached by trying, painting the fence, painting the fence, painting the fence, until we get to a point where we're like, I can't. And we just collapse, more or less. And the thing that is crucial here is that we collapse, but we remain committed to achieving the result we're committed to. So there's still a commitment for me to create what was next for myself. It wasn't just, I'm going to sit on the couch and do nothing. It was, I'm going to continue to build this thing, but the way that I'm doing it, that's not working for me. I can finally let go. And as I did so, what showed up for me was like, well, the kind of agreement that I ended up making with myself, I don't even know if that's the right term. What I felt as I hit this point of surrender was like a call to becoming very quiet and still. And for me, that meant I was like, okay, I'm going to stop watching TV. I'm going to stop playing video games. I love video games. I'm going to stop eating sugar. I love sugar. I'm going to stop drinking booze. Love me a good cocktail. I'm going to stop watching movies. I'm going to stop listening to podcasts. I love podcasts. Podcasts are super interesting. Adam, why would you stop listening to podcasts? That's educational. Because a podcast is consumptive. It is input to my system. And what I got really clear on in this moment of surrender was I actually want to just slow down and be very still and like listen to what comes forward. And further, I am willing to walk through the gate of boredom and restlessness that I am pretty certain is going to come up. And that was not most of my life I can see was dedicated to not being bored, not being restless, and not wasting time. And sitting and doing nothing was kind of like the height of wasting time. And so here I was in this moment of surrender, finally willing to sit and waste time, so to speak. And, there's this thing, I've talked about this, I've shared this a little bit with a few people, and sometimes people will say like, oh, you developed the ability to meditate, or you learned how to meditate. And I'm like, no, I did not. I completely had the ability to meditate prior to this. I was very reliable to carve out some time to sit on my couch or my cushion in front of my altar behind me and to meditate. I'm very reliable for that. I really believe in meditation. But that's different because meditation is doing a thing. Meditation is carving out time. You can optimize meditation. You can plug that in to the day's journey, and that can be a part of the day. This was something simpler and maybe deeper for me than meditation was, which was a willingness to do nothing, not even meditate, not even without any container or frame for it. And so as I started to get really quiet, sure enough, boredom and restlessness showed up, and I was bored and I was restless. And it was quite ironic because I would find myself sometimes, it'd be like 7:30 at night, and I'd be in front of my computer working on something, maybe programming like an AI tool or something like that, whatever it happened to be. And then I'd realize, oh, I don't want to do this at all. I'm not enjoying or inspired or wanting to work on this. I'm just doing it because I'm otherwise bored. And I want to not be bored. And so what I could see in that moment was that productivity was a acceptable way for me to be consuming time, so to speak. It was like video games, no good. Got to cut those out. But if you're being productive, that's great. I'm like, oh, crap, there's another one. Okay, I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to go sit on the couch. I wonder what will come. What will I discover? What will I end up doing tonight if I sit on the couch? Well, it turns out I sat on the couch for 3 hours and nothing happened. Sat there bored. But something really special started to evolve from that, which was an ability to be with what I'd spent a lot of my life resisting and avoiding, which was just sitting, just being in the moment. And as I started to do that, a couple of other things started to come online. Like I started to feel called to go to the gym. And I was like, all right, cool. For whatever reason, I'll start going back to the gym. And from this new place, the gym I discovered was like deeply spiritually nourishing for me, like lifting weights. I've always in my life been reliable to be active. I like playing sports and I don't like being out of shape and looking fat. I don't like looking with like I don't like myself with a round belly. I want to be thin. And so and I love sugar and I like to eat good food. And so as a result, I had this sort of like tension in me, which was not a bad tension, but it was like I would overeat sugar and rich food. And simultaneously, I would play sports and walk and do stuff sufficient that I could keep these things in balance. What happened on the other side of this shift was that suddenly, for the first time, the gym in particular, going and playing sports has always been free, but going to the gym felt like free, not even free. It was like deeply enjoyable. I was like, whoa, that's weird. For the first time, I want to be here and it has nothing to do with how I look. I like the way I look when I go to the gym, but it has nothing to do with that. Second, um, over time, I noticed a lot of my addictive cycles or patterns. I'm not necessarily going to say that they were wholesale addictions, but there is like a tendency in me to just constantly be eating sugar and like that fell away because now I could actually sit without doing something. I could sit in the stillness. And so then it turns out, you know, in hindsight, eating something was stimulatory and stimulating myself was a way to not have to be with that restless boredom that would show up. That my experience, right? Like the stillness, my experience would be like, I'm bored. I should do something. And then, okay, let's eat some food. That's some stimulation. That started to go away. And so it's been really crazy because on the other side of this, um, you know, honestly, I thought for the rest of my life I would be managing my sweet tooth. And that's what I'd done, and I'd been empowered in it for 46 years. I was okay with the fact that like, yeah, I'm gonna like eat a bunch of candy. I've got systems and approaches. For example, I was very reliable to not buy candy at the store. My willpower was at the store. And if I did, I would buy like a chocolate bar and I'd bring it home and then we would eat it. But that all worked when I was younger. But then I married this beautiful woman that I love. And that woman, all darn it, loves to just have giant bags of candy in the house. And then, so then we had a new system, a new way of managing my sweet tooth, which was I'd be like, you got to hide that candy. You got to put that somewhere where I can't see it because as soon as I see it, I'm just going to start wolfing it down. I just assumed that this was going to be the way my life was from now until I died. And on the other side of this, it's gone. It's gone. That's really cool, Belluri. Belluri sharing, I found out recently that craving sweets means you're craving joy. The tweak I would put on that is that you found out that for you, craving sweets means craving joy. For other people, it might be something else. For me, craving sweets was craving stimulation. It was craving an escape from the boredom. Not necessarily joy or anything, just a different experience, a state change, something other than that stillness. That's really good. Thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate that. So it's like, you know, I always hesitate to use this word because I think people overuse it, but truly for me, my experience is quite miraculous. You know, that that whole system I had in place that required me managing sweets. And I want to be clear, that system was not just for sweets. That system was there for like alcohol. That system was there for like movies and TV. Like I would have these elaborate, like, okay, you can watch an hour at blah, 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 all these. That's all fallen away. And, you know, like there's a bunch of amazing results that have come from that. Like I've dropped like 25 pounds, I'm like lean. I can see my abs. That's cool. I don't think I've ever been in as good a shape ever in my life as I am today. And I credit that with the breakthrough. Now, the thing that's really important for me in this is that someone could hear this and they could be like, yeah, okay, so just like, you know, just tough it out. You know, I listen to Jocko Willink and he's got a neck the size of a tree trunk. And he says, if you want to get up at 4 a.m., get up at 4 a.m. Yep. And that's what I did for most of my life is I would, like I shared, I'm reliable to do stuff, even if I don't really feel like it. And so I was reliable to like spend these protracted periods of time where I was doing the thing, where I was maybe I would work out diligently, or I would hold the candy at bay, not bay my wife, but like at arm's length. But here's the thing: it was always me managing something. There was always a degree of me exerting effort, and that the results that come from that can look identical, but the underlying experience is not the same. And that may not be the case for you. And if it isn't, amazing. But for me, it is radically different because on this side of things, it is not so much about efforting to create something. There's an effortlessness to like the way that candy can sit on the counter. And I just don't have, there's just not a part of me that is like, I must get in that. I can go to the gym without having to like force myself there. You know, it's in a funny kind of way, it's become very free. And so the way that I would like kind of headline, I guess, maybe, or summarize, bottom line, maybe, head or bottom, one of the lines, this would be that like I had this experience at the start of this process where I thought like, oh, there's a breakthrough, or there's like, I need some purpose. That's why I'm feeling bored. And if I can just find like a loud enough, salient enough, juicy enough purpose, that'll pull me out of the muck. But instead, what I needed to do, annoyingly and obliviously to me, hey Deborah, what I needed to do for me was to actually let myself sit with what was there and go quiet enough that I could hear the purpose that was already alive within me. It was quite wild. Let's just read what y'all wrote here. Balori saying it was someone else who does this. She said different cravings were with different emotions or things that wanted to be fulfilled. I don't remember the whole list. I think spice was passion. Yeah, that's cool. Like I really celebrate someone like coming to that discernment. And one of the things I know in all of the long years of this work myself is that human beings are incredibly adaptable, and it's pretty rare that there's sort of like if you're craving X, that always means Y. The system's it's sort of like the way that you'll see people who have an alcoholism problem, they cold turkey that, and then they pick up gambling, and it's like both of those are just the body, the system adapting to like there's something that this is allowing me to cope with, and if I can't have it this way, then I'll have it this way. And I would assert, without taking anything away from that person that you shared, Balori, and thank you for putting the link. She's put the link in the comment there if anyone wants to see it. Without taking anything away from that person, I would assert that like anytime we are craving something, we have something along the lines that I'm describing, it's protecting us from something. But I would push back on someone being like, this is always the thing that it's allowing you to sort of reach for or get more of or whatever. Sweets are actually a really good way to anesthetize yourself, as is money. They're two really good ways. Like you'll notice when you eat chocolate or when you make money, that like the stuff that was ailing you doesn't hurt so bad in the moment. It kind of goes away. It fades because you're like, ooh, your focus goes on to the dopamine hit of the chocolate, the dopamine hit of a nice paycheck or whatever. Your knees don't hurt so much for the next couple of days. Isn't that weird? So there's many different ways. And sometimes, heck yeah, it's a way that like, I'm feeling miserable. I'm not feeling happy. I'll take some sugar, boop, bump myself up. I'm going to elaborate, Deborah, on what you said, because I really like that idea of the beach ball effect. This is the idea that I'm going to take a swing, I should say. And hopefully I got it right to what you're describing. But this idea that what happens is we create these things in life that we don't want to be with. And it's a lot like holding a beach ball under the water. As long as we continue to apply pressure to it and energy to it, then it stays below the surface of the water. But the trouble is then our life becomes sculpted and shaped by the fact that, well, I have to keep a beach ball under the water. And then our whole life is built up from that. If anyone has read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, he has a really, really great metaphor he uses in this called the problem of the thorn. This thorn that's in your arm. And if you search for it, you might be able to find that parable. It's a really, really great one. It really does a great job of kind of like laying out how we create our whole lives around avoiding other stuff. Okay. So that's been the breakthrough. And I got to tell you, like, social media still sucks balls. I'm sure you noticed that. AI is still like, oh my God, there's so much junk and we have to sift through it. And like, it's not like my coaching practice has radically changed or anything like that. But what I can tell you is that I feel so much more alive in myself. Like the last 3 months, last 2 months in particular, I felt deeply passionate and alive with the fire. There's been a lot of like effortless. I've been up to a lot. The intensive coming up this coming week is full. We've had to cap it at 30 people, in part because I've been on point. You know, I've been very inspired to invite people to come join us, to be in that room with us. And so this is the nature of this stuff is we create the breakthrough, which changes who we're being, and then that allows the results to show up in a way that they could not before. Sort of like what a lot of the world is doing is they have barren soil and then they're trying to figure out like what's the best way to water my seeds? How do I get more seeds into my soil? How do I cultivate my soil better? The breakthrough work, the ontological work is like, oh, we got to actually get soil in which any of that stuff can grow. Because until we can do that, none of the other stuff's going to matter. Okay, so that's enough about Adam. Now we are going to shift. I'm going to hide that. Go away banner. And let's put a new one here, which is da-ba-da-da, knowing what you need to. Do you guys type this way? Is that how you speed up your typing? Knowing what you need to do and not doing it. How? Reveal. I've revealed it. How are we doing for time? 10:21. It's time for hot brown. That's how we're doing. Okay. I hear this all the time. All the time, all the time, all the time. I often hear it when I have a first conversation with someone and they're, let's just change this because having one earphone against your glasses kind of hurts your ear after a while. So I've solved that. There's a really specific frustration. It's not generic procrastination. This is a common frustration from people who are really reliable to execute. They're really reliable to perform. They're really reliable to do stuff. And so that's why this is like especially frustrating. It's quite maddening because it's like I know what I need to do and I'm not doing it. And the diagnosis that we have when we come up against this is like, okay, it's a motivation problem or it's a discipline problem. I'm not motivated enough or I need more discipline. And so what happens is people try to add a system or they get an accountability partner or they try harder or they like, often they're looking to me in these instances if we're in a like a conversation to check fit, like, okay, I need you, Adam, to like breathe hot fire down my neck every single day and force me to do something. And probably many of you have heard the tale of the person I talked to who like his boast was that he'd hired someone off of Fiverr to slap him in the back of the head every time he got distracted. That's like that's like Silicon Valley extremism, but it's a perfect example of what knowing what you need to do and not doing it. Like perfect example, the heightened perfect solution to the problem. I can't seem to make myself do it. Blah blah blah. If only I had someone that slapped me in the back of the head, I would do it. But that's not it. It's not what's actually happening. Obviously, the trouble is that like it's not knowing what you need to do is fine, but the knowing isn't really what's missing. What's missing is there's something structural at play. When I talk about structural, I mean the structure with which you've created yourself. So the structure of your identity, the structure of what you hold true about yourself, the structure of what you relate to as authentic to yourself, and the structure of what you relate to as inauthentic about yourself. All of the Adam is this way. Adam is just not that good at managing candy. Adam loves video games. Adam doesn't like it when people lie. Adam is unwilling to lie because he hates it when other people. That's all structure. That's the structure we're talking about. And knowing what you need to do and not doing it is a structural problem, not a content problem. It is not a problem of like, oh, I know and therefore I should be able to do it. Knowing isn't ever the issue, or it's almost never the issue. And so The thing is that like a structural problem exists prior to motivation, prior to discipline, and prior to our intention. It's upstream of all those things. So the trouble is that there's this underlying structure, underlying identity or way of being that we've created. And downstream from that is all of that's where we're trying to put into place all of the things. If only I was more motivated, if only I had more discipline. The problem is up here. And so it's a lot like that metaphor I just gave of doing everything right that a farmer needs to do, but doing it in arid soil in which nothing is going to grow anyhow. Excuse me. You know it's structural because if it was truly a motivational problem, it would have been solved. These are not unmotivated people. These are not people that don't make things happen. These are people that do things. And so it's never a motivation problem, but that's where we go. And so then the approach is to address the structure that is creating this breakdown. When I say breakdown, I mean it's a breakdown in terms of you're committed to doing a thing and you're not doing it. I'm just going to read what you wrote here, Billory. Billory writes, I've noticed every time I experience this, I should do this. I don't do it because something is out of alignment and it creates overwhelm and confusion and second guessing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things we could do with that. That's a juicy topic in and of itself, overwhelm in particular. But for now, I'll just say thanks for sharing that. I really get it. So the thing I like to invite people to look, and they never enjoy this, because what happens is when you have a thing you know you need to do and you're not doing it, all you want, especially if you're a high performer who's deeply motivated, all you want is to do the thing. What's the friggin' answer? Adam, tell me what I need to know so that I do the thing. That's the problem. That insistence of doing the thing, that inability to slow down and accept that for the time being it's not going to get done, is in the way, because it means that people can't slow down and really be with what is here to be with. In order to do that, in order to address the structure, we have to start looking at things like questions that sound like, what does this new behavior, what does this thing you want to do threaten internally? What about this is risky? If you do this thing, what is it going to expose you to? And the way that we answer that is usually, almost always initially, very cursory. It's very superficial. So it'll be like, fear of failure, rejection. Yes. Death at its core, right? I'll die. All true, but super high level, broad answers. And if you're willing to really slow down and ask that question, like, okay, but what version of rejection? Like, what about me would be rejected? What about me would get exposed? What might I have to be willing to let people see if I were to do that? The conscious stuff is the stuff that comes forward first. That's the answer. We're like, oh yeah, it's fear of rejection. Even if you're playing along with me as we're in this conversation, you might have already had like, okay, it's duh, and duh. Those answers, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're also top of mind. And that's not where the work is. Your structure is below the surface of your consciousness. And so this is where we actually really have to slow down. And you have to be willing to sit in the discomfort of not moving forward. Something in the operating system, something below the surface is like, I'm not going to go there. There's something about that that's at risk and that it's not yet conscious. And so the way to do that is to notice those moments where you're like, okay, it's time. I could do the thing right now. And hell no, I'm not going to do the thing. Great. What is it? What is it right now that I'm at risk of being exposed to? What would I have to be with? What story about me that I like to tell myself might be at risk? What might be true about me that I judge in other people if in this moment, these are the places that let us get down to the thing that we can't be with. To use Deborah's analogy, this is the beach ball that we're holding under the water. It's not that, I just need to do it. It's that doing it means the beach ball may come up, and then we're going to have to be with this experience that we've otherwise dedicated our life to avoiding. And that's very challenging. And so the trouble for high performers here is that high performers are super reliable to generate insight. They're super reliable to, like, as soon as I ask, like, what is this going to put at risk? They've got 58 answers. The trouble is none of those answers are actually the thing. The thing is to slow down. That's already vulnerable, because if you're a high performer and that's part of your structural identity, then slowing down is like, oh shit, but I'm not performing. And now you're at risk for that. So before you can even look at what this question is inviting, you have to sit in the discomfort of like, maybe you can't perform your way out of this. And maybe you can't create any insight that's going to solve this for you. That feeling and the discomfort it brings, that's the beginning of creating something new. That's the way out of this. So like letting go of understanding why. You already understand why. Understanding doesn't get at structure. So this is really like about the fact that the gap between knowing something and doing something is not character flaw. It's not deficiency with you. It's information, and it's pointing you to something deeper that you have not yet unearthed. You've not yet pulled up. Belore saying my approach and questions just make me happy. Well, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. We're here to make you happy. All right. Let's see. Well, let's go to I'm really good at my job. I gotta wobble my head here so that we can properly. Okay. I'm really good at my job, but it's a both and. It's not a but. And I'm bored. I am good at my job, and I am bored my job. This is a funny one. It's a little, kind of like it's the word that I want to use is embarrassing, but I would say that most people that find themselves in this situation often don't have a deep experience of embarrassing. It's more sort of like it's ignoble to own this. It's like, what can I possibly, I don't have, it's wrong for me to complain about things. Things are so good. I have it good, and I'm good at my job, and I have a good job. I shouldn't be complaining about it. And that's trap number one with this. So the underlying experience, the subjective experience, is that you can tell you're like really good at your job, you're super reliable, you're a natural at it, and you're bored. And that is hard to just come to terms and acceptance with. It's the first trap of this thing, because the way you feel is wrong before we get anywhere. You feel a certain way, and you shouldn't, because of all of the reasons we've just listed. So then you're caught in this limbo. So step one is just for us to like, hey, that's actually okay. Nothing is wrong. Life is fine. And admitting boredom when you're successful feels like ingratitude, or worse, like you're never satisfied, or, you're greedy or whatever. So the first step is to like actually be able to own this and not make it mean anything significant. It's just data. It's just fact. And the instinct when we feel, oh, there's a nuance I want to put on this. This is like not burnout. Burnout is different. Boredom is equally toxic. It's toxic, though, in a more subtle, pernicious way. Burnout is like super obvious. You're just like, your health declines, your mental ability to like stay sharp and focused declines, your ability to enjoy yourself declines. It's very clear, right? It's like, right there. But boredom is more subtle. It's sort of like microplastics. It's like a slow poisoning of your system. And then one day you're like, what the fuck? Why do I have cancer? I've lived healthy all my life. So it's distinct from burnout, and it's challenging in a different way. I'm not creating a hierarchy here. Like, no, burnout's worse or boredom is worse. They're both challenging for their own reasons. And it's better to not even really compare them. All I want to do is honor that they're distinct from one another. So the first instinct when this shows up, when we're like, I'm really good at my job, but I'm bored, is, well, find a bigger challenge. Go for a new role, go for a new company, scale a new mountain. Maybe I need to pick up bungee jumping. Sometimes that's right. So I don't want to take away from that. But often, like more often than not, it's not. More often than not, same person, new mountain, same flatness in about 18 months. Now, there's a distinction I want to introduce here, which is the early stage certainty bubble. The ESCB, early stage certainty bubble. I'm just going to write it out in a column. Early stage, I'm not even going to bobble my head for this. Certainty bubble. Boom. Get out there to the web. Okay, put it on YouTube? Why you put it on YouTube? Put it on the other places too. Oh, I can't type comments anywhere than YouTube? That's dumb. Anyhow, all right, go to YouTube, read that comment. It's what I just said. So early stage certainty bubble is where the person has decided I'm good at my job, but I'm bored. I need a new challenge. They go to the new challenge. And in the early stages of that experience, they're like, I have done the thing. I figured it out. I just needed a new job. I needed a new mountain. I needed a new country to live in. I did it. I'm proud of myself, as you should be. Excellent. This is early stage certainty bubble. It's where they're early on in the change that they've made, and there's a novelty with the change, and in that earliness, in that early stage certainty bubble, anything around them that suggests things are the way they used to be is dismissed. So it's very seductive. Early stage certainty bubble. It's sort of like that same, we all know about the honeymoon phase in relationship where we're just like, I found the perfect partner. This one doesn't have any of the flaws of my old crappy partner. The new hotness, they've got it together. Finally, I found someone I can live with. And then sure enough, 18 months later, crap, they do the same thing, or they just do the reciprocal to it. And they're annoying in their own way. So that's why I say same person, new mountain, same person, new job, whatever. In about 18 months, they're going to find that same flatness. And usually people that are at the first jump, they're their first attempt to solve this problem of I'm really good at my job and I'm bored, they don't have any ability to see beyond the early stage certainty bubble. That's okay. You got to wear it out. You got to, like, the only way to gain the wisdom of seeing this stuff sometimes is to actually walk through it and then be like, holy crap, same experience, even though it's a different mountain. What's going on? So here's what's actually happening in these people's lives. And I want to be clear that I am speaking from experience. I'm speaking from being a man who does this very much himself. This is a specific type of structure that creates this, a specific type of personality and identity that tends to be reliable to create this kind of experience. What's actually happening is we optimize away uncertainty. So any kind of uncertainty, I can't say any uncertainty because who knows, you go to the doctor and there may be uncertainty, or who knows, you're playing pickleball and that person might do a sneaky shot and it was uncertain. That's not, we don't need to get too caught up on that as I lead us into getting caught up onto that. But ultimately what's happened is you've optimized away any real risky uncertainty. So there's no, without that uncertainty, there's no not knowing. There's no actual uncertainty in your life. It's all handled. It's all kind of managed for. There's even like a way in which, no, I can have uncertainty here. Yeah, but you've got a system through which that uncertainty flows, through which you can catch it, through which you are on top of it. And without that uncertainty, without genuine uncertainty, not manufactured urgency, not manufactured uncertainty, but like real not knowing, without that, there's no aliveness. You can't be fully present to something you've already solved. It just doesn't work that way. And so what happens here is like the distinction between mastery and meaning. Mastery is when the thing stops requiring anything of you. You've mastered it. It doesn't require anything of you. And that feels like success and often is a form of success. But it's also the beginning of the problem. And the boredom isn't really about the job. It isn't about the mountain. It's that these people have gotten so good at managing their own experience that very little can actually reach them anymore. The optimization that made them excellent has also made them unreachable. And so where they're left is kind of like, bored. It's like if you are really, really, really good at something and then you went and showed up and you were playing pickleball with beginners or playing golf with, whatever it happens to be. And you're just like, okay, like I can do this. It's fine. I can win. There's just not that much for me because there's not that much that's calling you to your edge. And so the questions I like to invite people to explore in these situations is, what's the last thing you did when you genuinely didn't know how it would go? And or another, like a powerful place to look at this is like, notice the way you optimize away uncertainty. So what a lot of people want to do when they're presented with a distinction like the one I'm offering that brings something into focus that your system would otherwise prefer not to have brought into focus, we we move into a question of, do I do that? He's saying that this is about optimizing away uncertainty. Do I do that in my life? Do I do that is a question that has two answers. Yes, I do. Or no, I don't. It's a closed-ended question. And what will happen is if your system is defensive against this possibility, it's going to bias you towards a no. And once you say no, there's nothing here for you. The work is done. I guess it's just a problem of boredom, maybe somehow. I don't know, whatever. Maybe another rail of Coke. Maybe something like that. Who knows? The more powerful question is, where do I do that? Because what that does is it has you try on the distinction and like kind of look in your life from the lens of that. That's a much more powerful question to engage with than do I. So where can I notice like 10 places in my life where I'm optimizing away uncertainty? Can I notice 10 places in my life where I'm sort of like I've mastered things, but I'm actually now using that mastery in such a way that it doesn't allow for anything unknown to show up. There's no risk. Uncertainty equals risk. And mastery, one of the reasons it's rewarded so highly is that it eliminates that risk. We don't have any risk anymore. That's really safe, but it also means that there's no aliveness. And so boredom at this, I'll come to your question in a sec, Valori. Boredom at this level isn't a signal to change your job. It's not a signal to go climb a new mountain or to leave your marriage and enter into a new marriage. It's a signal. And the signal is telling you something about how you have calcified your life. And that's a much more interesting problem to explore. It's much harder to solve because it requires more excavation, more digging. The thing that's satisfying about the first instinct of this problem is that it's a very satisfying, like you get a new job and you're like, it worked. Early stage certainty feels good in the early stages of it. Instead, more exciting, more powerful place to explore is how you have calcified your life. Blurry asked, when you say unreachable, do you mean emotionally? Yes, unreachable emotionally, but also unreachable in terms of like things being able to impact you. Like a lot of leaders are very unreachable. And what that means is like their staff can bring something to them. Staff can be genuinely angry, and the anger has no impact on the leader. The leader is placid, the leader is a stoic. And what happens is, I'm not saying that the leader should scream back at the staff's face, but like if my staff member is angry at me, that should have an impact in my system. One that I can metabolize, one that I can hold as a leader. But there's a difference between being impenetrable and letting something penetrate and land in my system and be able to metabolize it and stay in the frame of leader. Most leaders do the former, the stoic impenetrability, and believe they are doing the latter. It's actually one of the first breakdowns they have to encounter is they have to come to terms with the fact that like they think they're doing one thing while they're actually doing the other. And it takes a bit of humility to accept like I might actually not be letting anyone in. Let's see what else you wrote here. Interesting. I never thought this is Baluri's comment. I never thought of it as uncertainty. I usually go with when are you happiest? What are you doing? Who are you with? What are you doing? And really getting down to the essence of who they're being and why they are not being that in the current situation. Yeah, you can take that approach too. Remember, I said this is a very specific person. The sort of people I'm speaking about and speaking to and speaking from, this guy, are those of us that are highly optimized. And so if you ask those questions like, when are you happiest? What we're going to do is we're going to optimize, we're going to figure that out. And then we're going to optimize for creating that happiness inside of our job. And it's still going to be boring because we are still not allowing for any uncertainty. We've just now found a way to like plug in some happiness inside of this existing system. And the people that are the best at this, it's really interesting because I'm talking high performers. These are like C-suite executives, people that like venture capital fund owners, high performers. They are hyper optimized. You give them something like happiness, they're going to optimize for more happiness. You tell them it seems like you need a little meditation, they're going to optimize that meditation in. It's all optimized. It's all brought into the system. There's no uncertainty. Thus, there's no aliveness. Okay, couple hot takes to riff on here. Let me have a sip. Hot take number one, AI is making the wrong things easier. AI is automating the output. So the memo, the strategy doc, the feedback framework, it's you're in a meeting that's dumb. Oh, I'll just have my AI note taker. I don't have to pay attention, and then I can summarize the whole thing. Why is there not a conversation happening about like how this is inefficient? What AI does is it allows us to continue to avoid having the conversation that needs to be had and instead manage better around it. That's not leadership. That is bad management. So notice if you want to do something about this, and you may have zero desire, you may have a lot of justifications for why not do something about this, like, well, they're not open to it. That excuse, they're not open to it, is the sound of you abdicating your leadership. I'm not saying that you have to do something. It's okay. You can abdicate your leadership. Just be clear that that's what you're doing. Be clear, like, I don't want to step into this. I don't want to stand for leadership here. But the practice of leadership is they have a bunch of reasons they're not open to it, and I'm going to bring it anyhow. And I'm going to do my best over here to get clear. How do I need to show up so that they might be open to hearing it? AI precludes all of what I just described because AI says, don't worry about it. That this process is crazy inefficient. We'll just plug in some AI on the other side. We'll just boil a bit of our ocean to deal with that. It's not the solution we think it is. It's actually just hiding the problem better. And so the irony here is as AI becomes more involved in our systems, leadership is just going to be more and more in higher demand because leadership has the conversation that is getting even more obfuscated, even more hidden from our perspective. Boom, roasted. Okay, everyone's building a feedback culture. No one's having a real conversation. 360s, radical candor workshops, psychological safety audits, active listening workshops. All of this stuff is an infrastructure of honesty, but it has no exposure. In fact, what it does is it hides exposure. So what you get are executives that go and take these workshops and then they do more active listening, but they're performing it. They're just applying skills on top of the existing structure, and the existing structure is where the contact doesn't get met. It's where it doesn't actually happen. And so the what do we do about that, Adam? Well, first we just recognize it. We understand, creating 360-degree reviews doesn't make a difference if you don't have someone that can hold a container for the review feedback to actually land. And I'm going to give you a really quick example of how 360 reviews sound when they're not landing. You give the feedback and the person says, okay, great. And you say like, well, what are you getting from this? And they say, well, like a couple things, but like one big thing is I'm getting like, I don't have to take on all the feedback. I can pick and choose and I can see what's really going to serve me. That's the sound of someone protecting themselves against feedback that is making them feel uncomfortable. And the feedback that you are uncomfortable with, that's the contact. The feedback you're comfortable with, there's nothing new there. You're already comfortable with it. Discomfort, they call it a comfort zone. Our leadership is on the outside of our comfort zone. So that stuff that you would rather sort of like, it's okay for me to not do it. Of course, it's okay for you to do anything. It's okay for you to come into my house, fart and leave. I'm going to start locking my door and I'm not going to invite you back anymore, but it's okay for you to do that. And it's also okay for you to be in a company and sort of take the path that doesn't develop more of your leadership. But if you're here, and if you're here because you want to deepen your leadership and your aliveness and your experience, then the way to do that is to notice the feedback that makes you feel uncomfortable and hang out with that. Balora, you're right. I actually think AI is about to expose a bigger identity fracture issue across the board. It's really interesting. My hunch is that, well, the adage I like is that AI is the food of the wise man and the liquor of the fool. So those people that are already doing structural ontological work, those people that are already engaged in like leadership development, AI is going to really provide something really profound, because then the soil is ripe for those seeds to be planted and AI can help you plant the seeds better. For the people that aren't doing that work, AI cannot change your soil. It does not address the structure. because all of your questions that you ask it come out of that structure, and because AI cannot be moved. It is not something that feels you. And that's what's required to do the sort of work we're talking about here. And so for those people, AI is going to, an unkind way to put it is accelerate the mediocrity. It speeds it up, it makes it go faster. And that's what's often happening when, a meeting sucks and people are like running it through AI so they don't have to participate. That's accelerating mediocrity. So, and then Balori follows up, how many people are proactively doing that work? Not a lot, not a lot, but that's okay. We don't need everyone to do that work because people come to it in their own tempo. Our work, for anyone that's sort of like, but how many people are doing that work? The answer to that, our work, is to do our work, to work with our coaches, to seek out teachers, to be a model for that. Because if we do that, people start to notice. They start to be like, there's something different here. I want to listen more to what this person has to say. Okay, we need another hot take. Vulnerability as a leadership brand. So post Brene Brown, thank you, Brene Brown. Everyone knows they're supposed to be vulnerable. The trouble is that knowing you're supposed to be vulnerable is different than developing the capacity to be vulnerable. And developing the capacity to be vulnerable requires containers and leaders that can actually hold that energy. That's not easy, nor is that free. That actually costs something. It costs money from you, but it costs like energy of the sort of people that can lead and hold that work. As someone that does that work, I can tell you it's very costly. It requires a lot of sourcing myself, a lot of my own support structures so I can hold that space. It does not cost a lot to talk about vulnerability. Talking about vulnerability is actually quite free. And if not quite free, it's almost borderline free. You can read about it. You can watch YouTube videos. You can synthesize it and you can metabolize it into your own insight. And then you can teach people about this. You can share to your heart's content about the power of vulnerability. And so the thing that I think is important here is to be in the practice of distinguishing someone talking about vulnerability versus someone being vulnerable. And the people that are being vulnerable, those are the people to lean towards. The people talking about it, not really worth your time. Oh yeah, okay. I think I'm gonna do one last one. This is the most self-aware people are often the most stuck. What? How could this be? Well, you know what? I'm gonna take some of what Adam says and not all of it. I've just realized I can do that. No, you have to take this too. Self-awareness has become another optimization tool for a lot of the people we've been talking about here today. So what happens is they use self-awareness to get ahead and out in front of feedback, to preempt criticism, and to manage how they're perceived. Patient zero, right here. This is basically how I came into coaching, was with a lot of self-awareness. Well, I should preempt that. First, with a lot of belief about my self-awareness, and second, with a fair bit of self-awareness. It wasn't that I was blind or oblivious. And all of that self-awareness was used to sort of like, okay, they're going to want this, blah, blah, blah. They're probably going to have this feedback. And then I would manage myself from my awareness so as to ensure I didn't get that feedback. That is a version of what I was talking about earlier about removing uncertainty. The self-awareness, it stops being insight. It stops being helpful. It becomes defense in a flattering disguise. It looks really good. It looks like the work. It's not. And so there's like a real gate of humility that leaders who pride themselves on their self-awareness have to be willing to walk through if they want to move to the next level, if they want to move into the next threshold. That threshold, I'm talking about like leading a team of A people who are followers and turning them all into leaders, like that threshold where you can lead a team of A type people, like incredible, like the A team, but they're all following you. And if you want to move them into the realm where you actually create more by doing less, and where you create people that create initiatives and then spin off their own companies and build those companies and create leaders in those companies, if you want to be that leader, the gate you got to walk through is one of humility, because all of the story about self-awareness is in the way. It's actually defensive. And a leader who is defending themselves creates a culture or a container of other people who are also unconsciously defending themselves. That doesn't work. Boom, roasted. All right. Those are the hot takes for today. Balori, big ups for you. Thank you so much for your questions. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the company. I see we've had a good number. We've had maybe 5 or so people here. I don't think I've seen Deb drop a comment. If you would like a sweet shout out right now, put your name in the comment while I'm winding down here. Um, let's see. We are starting the intensive in 2 days. The leader team from the Forge comes and joins us here in Victoria on Sunday. Monday, the rest of the Forge come and join us. And then on Tuesday, we start proper. We go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What? That sounds super cool, Adam. How do I learn more about the intensive? You can't. It's sold out. Boom. It's closed. It's going to be an amazing time. Good morning, Tommy. But if you are interested in future events, let me know. You can send me an email, adam@adamquiney.com. You can put a comment and say, I'd really like to be kept in the loop. You can reach out to me any number of other ways. You can send a message through all of these platforms. The year ahead, this year, I'm pretty sure that we're looking at alternatives. We're not sure how the Forge is going to unfold this year. And so what we might be doing instead is running more retreats. Historically, we run a retreat in the end of January to Costa Rica. We're probably going to do maybe that and then maybe another one. We're not sure. So there's going to be a few more retreats that we offer and possibly another intensive. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, let me know. I'd love to share out the details. It's going to be an amazing time. I hope y'all celebrate my birthday in fighting style. I hope you guys have an amazing time and pour a beer out for me wherever you are. If you're at work, go to the store, get a beer, pour that beer out in your government office. It would really mean a lot to me. that would be funny to me. And have a fantastic last third of spring, an amazing weekend, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.